Yo yo yo, Soup Squad! It's Nimbo Soup back with another video. At some point, you've probably heard someone mention the term energy fighting. Just hearing this and actually knowing what it means are two entirely different things though. I've finally gotten fed up with hearing people say that the BF-109s are bad, so here we are. Nimbo Soup's guide on energy fighting. What it is, how to do it, when to do it, all that jazz. For the purposes of this video, let's say that this guide will be applicable to props only. It'll be somewhat applicable to early jets too, but I don't want to confuse you guys with a bunch of nuances. Also, at some point down the line, picture me staring directly into Halo's soul as I say this, Halo and I will be releasing a guide on jets from early to late. That guide will include stuff about energy fighting in jets, so stay tuned for that. For now though, props only. One more thing, I consider myself a decent War Thunder pilot, definitely not the best, also not the worst. But as far as my real life pilot terminology and knowledge or whatever goes, I have very little. My knowledge is relevant to this game, and that's about it. So I'll be explaining stuff in Nimbo terms, aka layman's terms. The stuff I explain is all what I've learned so far from my experiences and will help you in-game. Personally, I wouldn't go taking any of these lessons to my job as a commercial airline pilot. I'm gonna give you all the knowledge I think you would need as a brand new player to know energy fighting, so noobs and veterans alike, strap in. Anyways, let's begin. Yes, when people talk about energy, we are referring to those same types of energy, being kinetic and potential, that you learned about in your entry-level physics class. If you've never taken one of those, don't worry, I'll give you a quick rundown. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. The faster an object is moving, the more kinetic energy it has. Potential energy is how much energy an object has the potential to have. This is, for our purposes, measured by altitude. Planes at higher altitudes have more potential energy because they can convert more altitude into more speed than someone lower to the ground can. Total energy, then, is the combination of kinetic and potential energy. Anytime I, or probably anyone else, says energy in terms of War Thunder, it means this total energy. If you don't want to be bored with all the details, just remember it this way. Energy is the combination of speed and altitude. Energy fighting, then, is utilizing your plane's performance or its higher energy state to bleed the enemy of their energy and eventually have a shot on them. A major help with this is the ability to read enemy energy states. Say that one 5 times fast. High energy planes are fast at high altitudes, and low energy planes are slow at low altitudes. As far as the importance of altitude versus speed in the total energy calculation, having more altitude will give you more energy. You can only go so fast, and you probably won't have to worry about max altitude, but this is not to say speed is unimportant. They're both necessary parts of the energy calculation and should be treated as such. Just think about it. If someone is traveling 700 kilometers an hour on the deck, they can pretty easily pitch up and get to a decent altitude. Even if you're at 5 kilometers, if you're stalling out and an enemy is around, you're probably screwed. In general, it's fair to say that at all times, you want to have as much energy as possible, no matter what plane you're in, for obvious reasons. It's much easier to avoid or pounce on enemies when you're above, or at least faster than they are. The way I see it, there's 3 different possible situations in War Thunder that determine what your tactic should be. First, the enemy is higher than you with more energy. Second, the enemy is pretty much at equal energy as you. And third, the enemy is lower with less energy. I'll be talking about equal energy states in this video, because in my experience, that's what leads to energy fighting most of the time. If you're above them, just boom and zoom them, pretty easy and highly recommended. If you're below them, try to make them overshoot, but don't go so slow that they have a very easy shot on you. Having less energy is certainly a very tough situation to get out of, but please don't be that guy that just immediately flies back to the base for AAA coverage. You are not entirely out of options yet. Bait to the team, make the enemy overshoot and hit a nice shot on them when they squirt out in front, ayo. You get the gist. Don't be a base camper. Sorry to digress, rant over. Anyways, equal energy states. The first thing I'll discuss is knowing your vehicle. This is extremely important, as always, and will determine how you should fight. You might not even be in a good energy fighter. Perhaps you're in a turn fighter, and you should just turn fight whoever you see. But we're talking about energy fighters today. Even still though, it depends on your plane what you should do in that energy fight. Maybe you have really good maneuvering energy retention, and you should keep the fight horizontal. Or maybe your engine has a ton of thrust and you lose less energy in the vertical than your opponent does, so you should take the fight vertical. This part could get awfully technical, so I'll just leave you with this. Know your plane and how to play it. Papa Nimbo unfortunately can't go over every plane in the game in one video. As the more observant among you might have guessed by now, I can't tell you exactly what maneuvers to pull off in what situations. Knowing your vehicle will allow you to figure that out for yourself. I can tell you, however, the general principles involved. In an energy fight, your goal is to drain the opponent of as much energy as possible, quicker than you lose your own energy. You should carry enough energy to dodge the enemy gunfire and set yourself up for a shot once all of their energy is gone. This being said, don't just pitch straight up hoping the enemy misses all their shots. Try to keep as much altitude as you can without sacrificing too much speed throughout an energy fight. Altitude will keep your energy state high and give you better positioning in most situations, but you'll always need a little bit of speed to be able to dodge any gunfire. Energy fights should be commenced when boom and zooming isn't an option and you don't possess a clear advantage, such as a UFO turn rate, over the enemy. And sometimes, that clear advantage will be that you're a way better energy fighter. Try to make sure you're in a plane that is at least decent at energy fighting if you're gonna try it. For example, a lot of Japanese props are strictly turn fighters. If you face an energy fighter that knows what they're doing, you will die if you fight on their terms and not on your own. As I said before, play to your plane's strengths first. If not an option, or if your strength is being good with energy, energy fighting should be used only when you can't boom and zoom. Do not try to energy fight if you start with a significant energy disadvantage. Even if your plane performs better, you will probably die due to their surplus of energy. First attempt to equalize energy states. This can be done by diving or speeding away depending how fast your plane is, hoping they lose interest, and climbing once more. Energy traps are my favorite way to get kills. They are immensely satisfying. It's the main energy fighting tactic I employ to bleed people of their energy and give myself an easy shot, so I figured they deserve a spot in this video. I'll give you a quick run through with some examples. It involves making the opponent think they can get a shot on you, baiting them to come after you, avoiding their nose, and finally pulling right onto their 6 once they've lost all speed and therefore maneuverability. If you have higher energy than the opponent, it's much easier, but not impossible if you have equal energy and a better performing plane. Quick side note, speed is more useful in these situations, as it is energy that can instantly be used to maneuver, dodge shots, or whatever else. Altitude needs to be converted into speed prior to being used. Anyways, before starting the trap, ensure you have enough speed or energy to keep separation or avoid the opponent's nose, especially if you're going vertical. Turn so that the enemy must bleed speed to get their nose on you. Obviously, you'll lose speed doing this too, but as I was saying before, ideally you have either more speed to start or a better performing plane that will lose energy slower. You can turn horizontally or vertically depending on the situation. I typically like to include a bit of both. I call it an energy spiral. No matter what you do, especially if the enemy is close enough to shoot at you, try to give them as small of a target profile as possible. Aileron roll so that your plane's side profile is facing the enemy's nose if necessary. Eventually, if your opponent keeps following and hasn't killed you yet, they will lose all speed and have been quote-unquote energy trapped. At this point, turn your plane back over onto their 6 and fire away. You should presumably still have enough speed to catch up to them pretty quickly, as long as you turn in fast enough. But don't turn in so fast that they're still behind you. You'll know when the trap has worked when the enemy is stalling out or has a visibly terrible turn rate. Energy fighting is something that sounds really intimidating, and it kind of is if you don't know what you're doing. But just like anything else in War Thunder, the only way to improve at it is to know the basics of what you should be doing and to apply them yourself in some live matches. Let me sum up the basics real fast so that you know what to work on. First, know what energy is. Be aware... Obviously know what energy is in the energy fighting guide. Come on now, guys. Be aware of Be aware of enemy energy states relative to your own. This is probably the most important. If you're well aware of relative energy states, you will be able to avoid enemy shots and hit some really cool looking energy traps. Reading energy states will come with much practice. Second, be familiar with the specifics of your plane's performance and to what strengths you should be playing. Incorporate these into your play. Last, know what strengths to use in what situations to use them in. If you're above an enemy, it's probably simpler, you just boom and zoom them, but otherwise, you should be well aware of what to do against specific enemies at equal and higher altitudes than you. This includes energy fighting too. Is my engine really good? Meaning, should I play more of the vertical? Do I have good energy retention in a horizontal? Can I do a quick turn at high speed, exchanging all that speed for turn rate, or do I just compress? It isn't necessarily about what maneuvers you can pull given your aircraft, it's about what maneuvers you should pull given the enemy aircraft and what will bleed their speed more than it bleeds your speed in the situation you're in. Alright, I know that was a lot. I tried my best to explain everything I thought was necessary, as clear and concisely as I could, so hopefully it was at least somewhat easy to follow for you guys. Deciding what to put in this video and what to leave out was pretty tough, but I think I've said everything I've wanted to say. Also, I just uploaded a video a few days ago with some raw, ayo, clips of me energy fighting and trapping people over some nice music if you want to see some examples without my boring voice. God, I'm still rambling. Alright, this has been long enough. Ayo, God. Anyways, check out the description, you all know the deal. This is Nimbo Soup, Nimbo signing out. Peace out, fellas.